All right, looks like we are recording. Welcome to everybody here. Good evening. I am on the East Coast side, so it is the evening time for me. If you are in a different time zone, whatever time zone you are in, thanks so much for tuning in and taking the time to be here. I know that everybody has a busy life. So the fact that you chose to spend part of your evening or your day with me means a lot. Now, when you all saw the title of this webinar, AI has a black problem, I'm willing to bet a lot of you made an assumption about what tonight was going to be about, right? Some of you all probably thought this is going to be another conversation about how AI is racist. Others probably thought this is going to be political. And some of you may have registered simply because you were curious enough to ask, what does she mean by AI has a black problem? Tonight is not about attacking artificial intelligence. I do want to make that very clear. It's not about convincing you that technology is inherently good or inherently bad. Tonight is about understanding something much bigger. Artificial intelligence is becoming one of the most transformative technologies of our lifetime. It is already changing how companies hire, how banks make their decisions, how healthcare systems prioritize patients, how insurance companies detect fraud, how governments deliver their services, how students learn, right? How businesses even operate. So, whether you realize it or not, AI is already influencing the world around us. And my question isn't simply, does AI have bias? My question is, how, or let me say, what role will we play in shaping the future of AI? Because one thing I've learned after years of working in the cybersecurity and AI governance space is that technology doesn't just create innovation. Every major technological shift also creates opportunity. So the question is, who gets included in that opportunity? Who gets left behind? That's the conversation I want us to focus most on this evening. So a little bit of housekeeping. I always love to do housekeeping because I think it's important. Like I mentioned, this session will be recorded because I want this conversation to reach as many people as possible. It will also be uploaded on my YouTube channel. That link will be shared with you all in the chat at some point throughout this conversation. But we'll save questions for the very end. But if something comes to mind and you don't want to forget it, please feel free to drop it in the chat. My team will be keeping an eye on those questions. And if I get an opportunity, which I may or may not, I will be able to look in the chat while I'm speaking as well to where I can pause and answer some of those questions. But for those that don't know who I am, my name is MarKeisha Snaith. I work at the intersection of AI governance, cybersecurity, and workforce development. My career over the last decade or so has been focused on helping organizations build trust in technology and making sure that innovation happens responsibly, securely, and with accountability always in mind. Outside of my day job, I am the founder of Xire, where I help organizations understand emerging technologies. And I also help professionals prepare for the future of work where we live in a society filled with that technology. One of the reasons this conversation is so personal to me is because I get a front row seat every single day to what organizations are thinking about AI. I see where companies are investing, where opportunities are growing, where new careers are emerging. And what concerns me most is that too many people in our community still see AI as something happening to them instead of something that can help shape. And before we go any further, I would love to know who actually is in this room. If you can drop your profession and where you're joining from, that would be great. Because one of the biggest myths about AI is that it's only relevant to people who are super technical, only relevant to engineers, developers, and that is not the case. So I know that's true, but I need you all to see that that's true. So I want you all, like I said, to drop two things in the chat: your profession and where you're joining from. All right. Looks like we have some people in higher education looking to transfer out. People in GRC in the DC area, IT professional in Dallas, tech and AI attorney based in New York. Nice. Let's see, data engineer from the UK. Great. We have somebody from the UK, healthcare in Texas, staff cloud FinOps, Louisiana, education, qualitative researcher and AI consultant in Alabama. That's awesome. Mental health in Chicago, AI alignment assessment. All right, data analyst in Texas, HR manager for a nonprofit in LA. Or Louisiana. Product manager, Baltimore, GRC, Maryland, AI compliance, Illinois, a nonprofit in New York City, biomedical science professional with experience in policy and communications, pivoting to AI governance, joining from Maryland. Yes, yes, yes. Hey, Bridget. Looking to transition from education. Okay, we have a few people in the education space here. So I think that's great. Um, we also have some people in InfoSec, which is great too, people in project and program management, people that's in the federal space. So this is absolutely wonderful. So thank you all so much for joining and continue to put your profession and where you're joining from in the chat. And I'll try to keep tabs on that if I possibly can. So let's test something. I know that you all are not able to click this like I am, but I want to know which one of you have, or which one of these do you all primarily use on a regular basis? Put it in the chat. And let's see which one's more popular. Is it going to be ChatGPT? Is it going to be Gemini, Claude, Copilot? Let me make sure I say Microsoft Copilot because GitHub does have Copilot as well. Perplexity, even if it's any AI tool at all, please put it in the chat. I really want to see what you all are primarily using. Um, and I'll mention, in my day to day, I am using ChatGPT. I am using Copilot. I do like Perplexity and I use Cursor a lot at work, which I love Cursor. If you all are not familiar with Cursor, definitely start looking into Cursor. I see a lot of people mentioning Chat GPT, people mentioning Claude. Claude is so popular now. Perplexity. I love to see when people are using Perplexity because I rarely see that. Harvey AI, that is great. Not many people know about Harvey AI. Gemini. This is absolutely amazing. Yes, thank you all. And again, continue to put what you use in the chat. That is wonderful. So if you all are seeing what's in the chat and what I'm saying, AI adoption isn't just something happening 5 years from now. It's happening right now, whether we are ready or not. And that's what's most interesting because most people interact with AI almost every day without even realizing it. So AI is already making decisions about your life. Yes, when people hear AI, they often think about robots or futuristic movies, but AI is much more ordinary than that. Think about your everyday life. So if Netflix recommends your next show, AI. If your bank flags a suspicious transaction, AI. If your email filters spam, AI. If LinkedIn recommends candidates or jobs, AI. If your GPS reroutes around traffic, AI, and so forth, right? So artificial intelligence is quietly influencing thousands of decisions every single day. Now imagine that influence expanding into hiring and healthcare and housing and education and banking and public services. So the question is no longer, will AI affect me? The question is, how is it affecting me already? And are we paying attention? So, does AI have a black problem? Now, this title, my answer is yes, but probably not in the way many people think. Because the mistake I see people make is they assume AI wakes up one morning and decides, I don't like black people. That's not how AI works. Artificial intelligence doesn't have beliefs. It doesn't have opinions. It doesn't have emotions. It learns and it learns from the information we give it, the data we collect, the decisions humans have made, the patterns that exist in society. And sometimes those patterns reflect incredible innovation, right? And sometimes they also reflect the historical inequalities. And if we don't understand where those patterns come from, we can't build better systems. So, over the next few minutes, I want to show you all examples that I've helped shape this conversation or that have helped shape this conversation. It's not to scare you, but it's to help us understand why this topic matters before we shift to what we actually do about it. And that's where I think the real opportunity comes in, right? So, facial recognition didn't work equally for everyone, right? So let's look at one of the examples that brought this conversation into mainstream for me, at least. Facial recognition. Many of you probably heard stories over the last several years about facial recognition systems performing differently depending on who they were trying to recognize. Researchers have found over years that some early facial recognition systems perform significantly better on lighter skinned individuals than on darker skinned individuals, particularly darker skinned women. So here's what I don't want us to do. I don't want us to hear that and immediately conclude that someone sat in a room and said, let's build software that doesn't recognize Black people. No, that's usually not how these things happen. More often than not, the systems reflect the data that they were trained on. So if a model sees millions of examples of one group and far fewer examples of another group, we shouldn't be surprised if it performs differently. And that's one of the first lessons in AI. The quality of your output depends heavily on the quality and diversity of your input. Now imagine deploying that technology in airports and schools and sport like sporting events, right? Even law enforcement. The implications suddenly become much bigger than technology. They become the questions of trust, and that's why conversations like this matter. Not because the technology is bad, but because technology is becoming powerful. Healthcare gives us another important example. There have been widely discussed cases where healthcare algorithms underestimated the needs of Black patients because of the variables they were trained to optimize. This is important. So the algorithm wasn't using race as its decision. Instead, it relied on things like historical healthcare spending as a proxy for health needs. How is it a problem? Well, healthcare spending is not always the same as your healthcare needs. Different communities have historically experienced different levels of access to care. I'm pretty sure you all have personal experiences of that, right? Whether it's you, family members, friends. So when an algorithm learns from historical spending instead of actual medical need, it can unintentionally reinforce existing disparities. Again, this wasn't necessarily malicious. It was mathematical, but mathematical decisions still affect human lives. That's why governance matters. Someone has to ask, what data are we using? Why are we using it? Could there be unintended consequences? Those questions don't only belong to engineers, they belong to organizations as a whole. So, to bring this closer to home, let's talk about jobs. Many of us are concerned about AI replacing our jobs. But another question is, how is AI helping organizations make hiring decisions today? Organizations use AI in different ways. Some use it to rank resumes, some use it to assist recruiters, some use it to identify skills, some use it to automate parts of the hiring process. And recently, many of you have seen headlines about the lawsuit involving Workday, which has been going on for some time. And the lawsuit really raises questions about whether AI powered hiring tools may contribute to discriminatory outcomes. And it's important to remember that the case is still being litigated. So the allegations haven't been resolved in court. But specific regardless of how that specific case turns out, it highlights a much bigger issue. Organizations have the responsibilities when they use AI to support employment decisions. If AI is helping to influence your hiring, how do we validate those systems? How do we monitor them? How do we identify those unintended biases? Those are all governance questions. Those are risk questions. Those are accountability questions. Those are the kinds of questions or kinds of conversations happening in organizations today and the types of questions that are being asked. So if AI isn't making these decisions because it has opinions, then where does it learn from? Well, it learns from us, from the information we create, from the images we upload, from the documents we write, from all of the decisions we've made over decades. AI learns from data, and that data becomes models, and those models produce output, and those outputs influence decisions. It is always important to understand when you are using a tool, what capabilities does that tool have? You are training this model. Understand the life cycle of AI, right? So those outputs are influencing the decisions, and eventually those decisions are going to affect people. So when someone says AI is biased, I like to also ask another question. What is the AI learning from? Who is it learning from? Because that's where the conversation gets interesting, right? AI reflects society. Sometimes that's wonderful, sometimes it's uncomfortable. But understanding that distinction is incredibly important at the end of the day. Now we get to the question of, all right, I think it's the most important question of tonight, but it's not, does AI have a black problem, right? We talked about why that conversation exists, but I personally think the bigger question is what role will black professionals play in shaping the future of AI? Because that's what worries me. And when I have conversations in our community, I hear the same things over and over. AI is going to take our jobs. AI is scary. I don't know anything about AI. I don't code. I don't like AI. I miss the boat or the train. But what I don't hear enough is how can I be part of building the future? Because here's what technology teaches us. Every major technological shift creates opportunity. Remember when I said that in the beginning? The internet did, cloud computing did, cybersecurity did, mobile technology did, and AI will too. And the people who benefit the most won't necessarily be the smartest people. They'll be the people who choose to participate and who choose to participate early on. That's where I believe our conversation has to change. We spent enough time asking what AI might do to us, and it's time to start asking what can we do with AI because that's where our future is. So let's ask the question we just asked. What role will Black professionals play in shaping the future of AI? I think one of the biggest misconceptions people have is that AI somehow builds itself. It doesn't, right? Behind every AI system is an ecosystem of people. So when ChatGPT gives an answer, people designed the infrastructure, people built the model, people tested it, people wrote policies around it, people secured it, people decided what data could be used, what data could not be used, and how much human oversight should exist. AI doesn't exist in isolation, it exists inside organizations. And organizations are run by people. That's why I love this visual because it reminds us that engineers are only part of the equation. There's researchers, there's legal teams, there's auditors, there's risk teams, there's security teams, there's privacy teams. There's even executives making strategic decisions, right? So when someone says, I don't know how to code, my response is, neither do many of the people helping to shape AI because AI is no longer just a technology conversation. It's a business conversation, a legal conversation, a governance conversation. And that's exciting. That should get you excited because suddenly there are far more seats at the table than I think people truly realize. And I want to challenge another myth. When you hear the words work in AI, what's the first job that comes to mind? Most people immediately picture a machine learning engineer, someone writing code all day, someone with a PhD, someone doing advanced mathematics, and those roles do matter. Don't get me wrong, but that's only part of the story. The AI economy is creating demand for people who understand business and who understand regulations and communication and risk. And in other words, AI needs interdisciplinary teams. One of the biggest mistakes we can make is believing that because we aren't engineers, there's no place for us. And that simply isn't true. One of the most important decisions surrounding AI aren't the technical decisions at all. They're the decisions about accountability and transparency and oversight and who gets access and who approves the deployment and how do we monitor AI after it's launched, right? Those are not coding questions. They're leadership questions. So let's say you're sitting here tonight thinking, okay, I understand why this matters. Yeah, yeah, yeah. But where do I fit? That's the question I want you all to leave here answering, right? If you're highly technical, maybe AI engineering is your path. Maybe data scientist. Maybe you can be a data scientist. If you enjoy solving business problems, product management, program management, maybe if you enjoy the AI strategy side of things, then, the governance realm is for you, where you can do AI risk and AI audit and AI governance at that, right? If you enjoy policy, like if you're an attorney, I think somebody said they were an attorney on here, you can do the AI law, you can do policy, you can do regulations. And if you notice something, I didn't just describe one career. I described a few different titles, right? And this is why I titled the slide, There is a Seat for Everyone, because there absolutely is. Not because everyone's going to do the same thing, but because everyone brings something different to the table, and you should really hone in on that. You should stop trying to fit into a box where you don't belong, hone in on your skills, and then find that role where you can execute on that skill set that you've acquired year after year after year. People need people like you, right? Again, don't box yourself in. So the question is, which seat belongs to you? That's what I need you to be asking yourself. So why does this matter to me? Well, I want to make this a little bit more personal, right? Because I love being transparent. I think I mean, I've been asked a couple times, how'd you get into cybersecurity? How you get into AI? I do AI security governance. So as I mentioned, I get asked those questions a lot, right? I didn't wake up one day and decide I wanted to become an AI expert. And my foundation was tech, but my foundation was also cybersecurity, I feel, which allowed me to get into the AI space. But my foundation was also governance, risk, compliance, right? I spent years helping organizations think about security, whether it was in controls, risk, accountability, you name it. So as AI started becoming integrated into organizations, I realized something. The same questions we'd been asking in cybersecurity needed to be asked about AI. What are those risks? Who owns this? How do we monitor it? How do we respond when something goes wrong? How do we build trust, right? And that's how I found my seat, not becoming an AI engineer, but by bringing the skills I already had into this emerging field. That's one of the biggest reasons I wanted to host this webinar, because someone listening tonight may already possess the skills needed to contribute to AI. You may not feel that it's relevant right now, and I don't think you need to reinvent yourself. You may simply need to reposition yourself. And I think that that realization changed my career, and it could change yours. I never try to fit into a box. I make things work for me, meaning things come to me, right? So you're never going to see me trying to put the square into the circle. It doesn't work like that, right? You're going to have to change that shape, right? For the square to fit in, right? That's kind of how I live my life. So I'm saying all this to say you can do it as well. And now is the time. When I teach my students, I talk about this all the time in the cohort, that this field is for any and everyone, but you will get left behind if you don't change your mindset. So I want to leave you all with one thought before we start talking about what comes next. So I mentioned participation matters. And it's not because diversity is a checkbox. It's not because companies need like better statistics. Participation matters because better perspectives create better systems. Think of it that way. When different voices are involved, different questions get asked. You all know that. You all know who your board of directors are. You all know who your exec is. You all know who is in the White House, right? It's the same people over and over and over again. So it's important that different people are coming to the table because they have different experiences. And with different experiences, you're seeing things differently. You have a different perspective. Now you're going to ask different questions that have never been asked before, right? So someone could ask, have we tested this on different populations? Or someone could ask, what assumptions are we making? Or the question could be, could this create unintended harm? Those questions are improving AI, but participation isn't only about improving technology, it's also about the opportunity, right? The AI economy is creating entirely new careers, new companies, new industries, which is even crazy, right? New industries. I don't think many people thought about like, I keep hearing about AI and farming, and I'm like, I got to get ahead of that. I had met somebody who's in farming and was like, MarKeisha, you know AI. Can we link up and talk about, implementing AI into farming? And I'm like, this is a whole new world for me. right? But again, AI is creating those new types of industries that nobody's really focused technology on in a very long time. In addition to that, a good question to ask is, will we help build those companies, those industries, right? Or will we spend the next decade watching everyone else build them around us? And I don't want our community to simply consume AI because that's what a lot of us are doing. I want us to create with it, lead through it, govern it, secure it, improve it, question it. That's what the participation looks like. And that's why I believe the conversation is so important. Which leads me to, my question, if participation is the goal, how do you actually prepare yourself? I'm going to talk about it, but I want that to like just seep in just a little bit for you all. Now what? What do we do now? How do you actually prepare yourself? That's a big, big thing. How do you prepare yourself? Let me actually go back to this slide because I want to sit with it a little bit. So we talked about what why participation matters. We talked about why representation matters and why or the different seats at the table. I think the next biggest question becomes how are you going to actually prepare yourself? And I think this is where a lot of people get stuck because the AI industry is moving very, very quickly, and every week there's a new model. You all know about it, you all hear about it. It's a new tool, a new startup, new regulations coming down the pipeline, a new headline. It can feel absolutely overwhelming and it can feel like you are getting left behind. So I want to simplify it for you. You don't need to become an expert in everything. You just simply need to become intentional about your learning. You need to start by building AI literacy. Understand what AI is. Understand what it isn't. Understand where it's being used. And ask yourself, how does my current experience fit into this world? Because I promise you, the skills you've already developed over the course of your career have value. And maybe it's project management, education, HR, software engineering, finance, cybersecurity, whatever it may be. Don't start by asking, how do I become someone else? Start by asking, how do I bring what I already know into this new era? And if you ask yourself that, the question changes everything. So, getting to this slide that I had skipped ahead, I want to ask you all, and I want you all to genuinely think about it. What's your seat? Not what your friend's seat is, not what's the hottest AI job out right now. What is your seat? Maybe you're the person who will secure AI systems. Maybe you're the person who'll write the policies. Maybe you'll do the auditing. You may even become a founder. You may build up the next AI startup. You could teach. You could research. You could become an AI engineer. But the point isn't that everyone follows the same path. The point is that everyone chooses a path and stops stalling. Because one of the biggest mistakes you can make is when you sit on the sidelines waiting until you feel ready. I'm sure you all have heard of this before, right? Oh, I'm just waiting. I'm just waiting. I'm not ready. I'm not ready yet. I'll do it tomorrow. I'll figure it out next month. We're almost in 2027. It's July in a few days, right? Technology's not waiting for you. The workforce definitely is not waiting for you. Opportunity for sure doesn't wait, right? So you don't have to have your entire career figured out tonight. You just have to be ready to take the next step. I've worked with hundreds of professionals, probably thousands at this point. I think it's thousands at this point. I've coached people, I've taught people, I've given leadership seminars. Again, I've worked with tons of people. I've worked with founders, CEOs, people at the C level, whatever you name it, right? I've helped people transition into cybersecurity. I've taught AI governance. I've noticed something, the same thing over and over and over again. People love collecting information. We buy books, we enroll in courses, we earn certifications, we collect digital badges, and I don't think that there's anything wrong with learning. Learning matters, but eventually someone is going to ask you a different question. Can you actually do the work? Can you think through the problem? Can you evaluate risk? Can you communicate recommendations? Can you work through this specific issue, this chaos? That's what organizations are hiring for. And they're not hiring for the perfection, they're hiring for the capability. And that's one of the reasons I believe the conversation around professional development is changing. It's becoming less about memorizing information and more about demonstrating how you think. So that brings me to something I am genuinely excited to share. And I've been sharing this little by little, bits and pieces. You may catch me on LinkedIn sharing it. You may catch me on Twitter talking about it, right? But over the last several months, last few months, I should say, I've had the opportunity to partner with Talent Cred. One of the things that stood out to me with Talent Cred, when I initially had this conversation, it was conversations in the works because it just doesn't come overnight when you decide to partner with someone. You really have to understand the product, the vision behind it. You need to understand the person. For me, I have to trust the person I do any type of business with, any type of partnership with. I just don't put my name anywhere or align myself with just anyone. And, with Talent Cred, what really stood out wasn't it wasn't that it was a focus on teaching concepts alone, but that the platform was focused on helping people actually demonstrate competency through realistic scenarios. And that really mattered to me because in my world, organizations don't hire people because they passed an exam. They don't hire people because they got a degree. They don't hire people because, they just had a friend that recommended. That's not happening in my world. They hire people who can think critically, people who can solve problems, people who can communicate recommendations flawlessly, people who can make sound decisions. And one of the projects I personally had the opportunity to contribute to was helping build an AI governance scenario. Now, this platform is free. I will say that. I repeat, it is free. So I'm not here selling you on anything, right? This webinar is free. This information I'm giving you for free. My time is free right now, right? But what I want to say is in this platform, you will find a few different clusters. The AI governance cluster is a cluster that I was able to work on with my team. And I am very proud of that. And I want you all to scan this QR code and or put the link in your browser, talentcred.io. I want you all to sign up for an account. And I want you all to start looking into those clusters and taking those scenarios slash challenges because it is important to understand where you actually stand in this job market. Because as I mentioned, it is not solely about what you know. If you cannot articulate what you know well to a hiring manager, to leadership, anybody on the business side, you will not get hired. So it is so important that you're making sure that it's not just the theory, but the application as well. You have to get the hands-on experience. Anybody can study and pass a certification exam, right? But not everybody can sit in a 60-minute challenge, read a scenario, actually respond to the scenario in real time, and show their competency through landing a score. That is the point. This is also why it's free. Why I'm opening it up for you all to go and challenge yourself to be better, do better, to see where you land, to truly understand, do I know this subject matter? And it's okay if you don't. It's okay if you don't score well. Nobody's judging you. You are up against yourself at the end of the day. So when you question, should I move forward? Should I do this? Should I do that? Your competition is yourself. You are the only person that's delaying your growth and delaying you making your transition into this next phase of your life when you sit there and when you question these things. So, if tonight's conversation has sparked something for you, and if you're wondering how to continue learning, how to challenge yourself, how to move beyond that theory, Talent Cred is one of those resources I'd encourage you to explore. And it's not the only path, but I do believe that the future belongs to people who can demonstrate what they know. It's as simple as that. So I do really hope that tonight leaves you with one realization. The conversation doesn't end when we log off. I mean, artificial intelligence isn't slowing down, and organizations aren't slowing down, and the workforce isn't slowing down. They're continuing to hire. And this conversation will leave hope for many, and that's great. But to continue your journey, you can connect with us. You can connect with me on LinkedIn. You can connect with me via email. My LinkedIn is well, you can just find me by my name, MarKeisha Snaith. I'll make that easier for you. And if you have a question, you want to send us an email, you want to work with us, you need help in your career navigating the job market, you want training for your organization, whatever it may possibly be, you can reach out to us at hello@xire.io. That is hello@xire.io, and we can respond to you. You can also, as I mentioned, Talent Cred is available to you for free. It is a free platform. Utilize it. I don't know how long it'll remain free. Take advantage, right? We're not talking tokens here, right? Take advantage. It's completely free. You can also follow the future workshops that we have by subscribing to our profile on Luma. That is an option as well. And then you all can participate in upcoming discussions. There's discussions being had everywhere in your community, online. amongst your friends. Start the conversation. People are willing to talk. Conferences are available. More webinars are available. There's just so much opportunity out there. I think it's important that you all stay curious at the end of the day. So I want to close where we began. AI has a black problem, and maybe not in the way the title first suggested. And I don't believe the biggest problem is that black professionals lack the intelligence to participate. I don't believe that we lack creativity or capability or resilience. But I do believe one of the biggest challenges is believing that AI belongs to someone else, that it's only for engineers, that it's only for researchers, that it's only for Silicon Valley. I don't believe that. And I don't want you all to be afraid of it. I want you all to embrace it because AI belongs to all of us. Every industry is being transformed, every profession is being impacted, and every community deserves a voice in shaping what comes next. You deserve the seat at the table. Don't let AI become something that happens to you, but help make it something that happens through you. Ask the questions, learn, participate, speak up, build, govern, secure, audit, lead, whatever, right? Whatever it is, it will definitely be shaped by people asking the better questions and people challenging the assumptions and people protecting communities, people protecting their own people. How about that? So ask yourself, will you take your seat? All right. Well, it's the end of presentation. I appreciate everyone participating. I am now getting a chance to look at the chat. Thank you all for, really engaging with each other, sharing your LinkedIn's. Thank you so much. Um, my team did put in the chat how to connect with us. So please, you all, you can definitely reach out to us via email, or you could also reach out to us via LinkedIn. Um, all right, I'm going to open up the floor. If anybody has any questions, you can most definitely raise your hand. Let me actually stop sharing. You can raise your hand and ask your question, and then we can go from there. And if nobody has any questions, that is fine too. But I'm pretty sure there's questions that people have. Yes, Tristan.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you.
Okay, cool, awesome. So when it comes to like building projects and continuing to show work, what would you suggest from a portfolio standing point? Would you say a GitHub or would you just say a more PDF standpoint, PowerPoint?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I actually have my students building their portfolios through GitHub. I mean, I think this is kind of twofolded, right? Because I've also seen people not only using GitHub, but they've also been utilizing what Claude can help build them. And they've been doing that through actual websites. So they've been having Claude build websites that also showcases the work that they've been doing. I think that's a great option as well. I think it also gives you more flair. Now, the reason why I mentioned that I had my students building their portfolios in GitHub is because I was teaching a GRC and AI governance accelerator cohort. And a portion of working in, or a good part of working in AI governance is you're going to be working with engineers. And a lot of them already have exposure to GitHub. And one of the tools that gets asked of you a good amount of times is GitHub. And so I wanted to make sure that they were familiar, that they could speak to it, that they could show a hiring manager, hey, I already have the experience using this particular platform. I think that that's a huge plus when engineers know that you have been utilizing GitHub for your own particular needs. So when you understand how to actually go and create a repository, share it, create APIs, things like that. I think that's great. So I would say that's my recommendation. I also want to add too, if you're like, don't build random projects just to say you built a random project, right? I really believe that you need to build projects that solve realistic business problems. Let that be very, very clear. So, for example, and this is the easiest example for me to give, if you're interested in AI governance, don't just write a policy. Create a complete AI governance package for a fictional company. Do a risk assessments. Create an AI inventory. Build an AI use case intake form, right? Those are the kinds of artifacts that demonstrate how you think, which is most important. If you're interested in AI security, threat model an AI application. Show how you would identify the risk and recommend the controls and communicate those particular findings. The point is to create work that actually mirrors what organizations are doing. Keep in mind, when it comes to hiring, it is not just about you, it is about the business. Always keep that in the back of your mind. I hope that was helpful.
Yeah, that was perfect.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Looks, you're welcome. Looks like Gladys, you have a question?
Hi, MarKeisha. Can you hear me?
I can hear
I
you.
can hear you. Hiya. Yeah, thank you for sharing all of this. It was definitely insightful, and I truly appreciate you taking the time. And, I'm a believer, so the Lord will surely reward you for your generosity and your willingness to pour into others. Just want to caveat that it's 1 a.m. here in London, so I apologize for the very hoarse voice. But my question is more so around transitioning from governance and strategy roles into AI governance rather than from like a very technical background. And I want to ask you, looking back at your own journey, what do you think is the biggest advantage, people with governance experience often underestimate? And what gap do you believe I should focus on closing first? I hope that makes sense.
Yes,
Yes.
really great question. Okay, let me see how I want to approach this. So, I think when it comes to governance and strategy, I think you're already thinking about the accountability piece. You're also already thinking about the decision making and the policy and stakeholder management and operating models. So, I think those skills are very transferable. What I would recommend doing is leveraging your AI knowledge on top of the experience you already have. So learning the AI life cycle. I think I pointed a little bit to that in the presentation, right? So understanding concepts like your model risk and your overall data quality and your human oversight and bias and explainability and those governance frameworks that are specific to AI. So NIST AI, RMF, and your EU AI Act and your ISO 42001. I think then it would be really solid for you to start applying those concepts to real world scenarios. So, for example, and I always tell people this, come up with a fictional organization and ask yourself, how would I create an AI intake process? How would I classify this AI system by its risk? What governance committee would review a high risk use case? What controls would I recommend before deployment? I think that those exercises can really help demonstrate that you think like an AI governance professional. So don't think about changing careers per se. Think about extending your current expertise into one of the more fastest growing disciplines in technology, which is AI governance. If you don't already know, governance is huge in this AI space because governance isn't it's becoming less important because of AI, but it's also becoming more important at the end of the day, was basically what I'm trying to say. In addition to that, I think you may have asked this question, but just to relate it back in terms of my experience and what helped me get into the space, I will say it was a combination of two things. It was a combination of having GRC experience, but it was primarily having security architecture experience. And that is because as a security architect, I already collaborate so much with developers on a day-to-day and with vendors and with enterprise architecture and things of that sort. So that was seen as being a plus because I understood how to evaluate systems a little bit differently than maybe another individual would have. So again, as I mentioned, really hone in on understanding your AI model life cycle, the different models that exist out there, controls and how you would write like an AI specific control and how you would apply those controls and turn your policy into policy as code. Again, operationalizing your governance is very important because that's essentially what governance is the operationalizing of your actual control so that you can implement and start executing. So that's my recommendation.
Thank you so much, MarKeisha. I do have a few follow-up questions, but I can see someone else has put their hand up,
Yeah,
so
are
I'm
you
going
able
to go
to
first.
yeah, are you able to connect with me on LinkedIn?
Yes, of course, I am already
Okay.
connected.
Okay, perfect. Just shoot me over your questions over there.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Of course, yes, not a problem. All right, looks like we have two other hands raised, but for some reason I cannot see all the people with their hands raised. I see a Quentin, I just don't see the other individual.
Is it okay if I ask mine real briefly then?
Yeah, absolutely.
Appreciate it. My name is Quentin. I've been doing this thing called Quentin's Got a Question. So anytime I'm in these environments, I try to ask a question because I've been told I need to. Thank you for hosting this. I had a quick question as far as what you're in. I wanted to know what are the top three sections or subsections or field within AI that you would like to see being worked on or developed? And are there any particular projects that come to mind that you would like to see come to life or
Mm,
implemented?
okay, so that's a good one. All right. All right, great question. So you're first. If I had to pick three areas that I believe is going to have the biggest impact, I would personally say that, I would say AI governance and trust. I know that may sound very obvious, and I talk a lot about governance, right? But I think as organizations race to adopt AI, they're realizing that building an AI system is only part of the challenge. They also need to answer questions like, should we use this model? Who's responsible? If things go awry, how do we monitor it? Things like that, right? I think so. That's becoming very, very like top. I would also say probably AI security as being one. So as AI becomes embedded in more products and business processes, we'll see more attack vectors over time. I think that's important. So when I talk about attack vectors, prompt injection, data poisoning, model drift, just for example, right? So organizations need people who are going to understand how to secure the AI through its life cycle, and not just your traditional IT environments that have been around. I would also say, and this has been a big one, AI for workforce development or workforce enablement. Let me say that. Like, I'm passionate about using AI to augment people rather than simply replace them, right? But how do, like, it's important to ask, how do we help teachers teach better? How do we help healthcare professionals make more better informed decisions, right? Those are great questions to ask. But those are the kinds of applications that have the potential to improve millions of lives, you know? So I think that the workforce enablement in AI is going to be particularly super important, that we're not trying to replace people, but we're trying to have AI work with them and along them and to make everybody better at their jobs. Um, for projects that I love to see, I think I'd actually loved, I mean, I've been seeing some of it because people reach out to me all the time about it. But I think I would love to see more. Hmm. It's a toss up between more like AI governance platforms, like tools, like more open source AI governance tools. So imagine a platform where organizations, especially those small organizations and nonprofits, could walk through an AI use case and automatically generate a risk assessment and map applicable controls and all of that. I think that would be great. Large enterprises now already investing in that. And another one, that's why I was like kind of like two, is just learning platforms that help people demonstrate their skills. That's why I speak so highly of Talent Cred, because the platform does allow you to do that. It's not only AI specific, so I will say that. Um, it does sit on top of an LLM. I will say that because it's generating the challenges after things that we already suggested. But just more learning platforms that help individuals learn I think is really going to be substantial. I would love to see more of that.
Appreciate it. Thank you. I'm working on a project called Melanated Machine Learning because I
Hmm.
wanted to document my journey on becoming a machine learning engineer. But I also thought about other subsectors of where it can actually be built. So they talk about biases. I thought about joy and unmasking AI. There's a few other fields that I would like to bring to the field as well. But thank you for sharing.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's great. I think you all are doing such great things. Um, I see Tristan. Oh, you lowered your hand. Okay, so no problem. Does anybody else have any questions? I know that we're at time. We're a little bit over. I always appreciate you all staying just a little bit longer with me. But as I mentioned, I will be posting this on YouTube. At the end of this webinar, you all will receive an email that has all the links in case you missed it here. So it'll include my YouTube so you can subscribe and see this video when it does get uploaded. It'll also include my email and then where to find me on LinkedIn. And it'll also include information about Talent Cred. But if there's no other questions, I think somebody said curious about what's one way to stay current in building practical skills as we enter a post AI era. I think that's a great question. Practical skills. Man, man, man. I would say that it is so in one sense, you always need to stay ahead of the curve by making sure you understand what new technologies are out there. But at the same time, in terms of practical skills and soft skills, I will say, I think it's very important that people focus on, has anybody ever heard of Toastmasters, for example? I was introduced to Toastmasters a few years ago. And I think that if you've never gone the route of Toastmasters, you absolutely need to do so. It'll get you out of your comfort zone, it'll challenge you, but it'll make you a better speaker. And it'll make you better overall. So I don't think that we should shy away from those things, right? Because in Toastmasters, you have to actually be prepared to present. But it teaches you how to speak confidently. It teaches you how to command a room. It teaches you better communication skills, writing and reading skills, right? I don't think it's just US exclusive. And somebody correct me if I'm wrong. I think it may be all over. It may have expanded, but I could be incorrect. So apologies there. But it does all of that for you. And when you are in going into I will say even too, engineers are having to speak up. People who may have been in those super technical roles that really haven't had to defend anything, they're now having to defend everything because of AI. So I just don't think that, we can hide behind the closed doors anymore. Now everybody is making sure that they take advantage of, ensuring that people have those those actual soft skills that were mentioned. So again, I just think that's super important. Thank you, Tristan, for finding that. Um, for me. Thank you. Somebody said, what role could civil rights organizations play in shaping AI policy? This is the last question I will take. Well, geez. I don't think it's a role that you all may immediately think of, but I don't think their role is to oppose AI. I think their role is to help shape how AI is developed and maybe deployed. Because I mean, throughout history, civil rights organizations have advocated for fairness and equal opportunity and more accountability in systems that affect everyday lives and people in the community. And I think AI is becoming one of those systems, right? So I think that, you know, they also have an educational role. So many communities are hearing about AI through headlines, and those headlines are creating fear. They may be creating confusion. I think that those organizations really can help translate those issues, educate the communities about both the risk and the opportunities. Things like I'm doing now, right? Encourage more people to participate in shaping AI rather than just reacting to it at the end of the day. Um, and I think too, like, I mean, I love to see more of them partnering with industry and policymakers and researchers. That would be great. More technologists, right? I think the best AI governance happens when multiple perspectives are at the table. So at the end of the day, I don't think the goal should just be to slow the innovation. Let's just make sure that the innovation is going to benefit everyone. That should be the focus. All right, well, we're at 8:13 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So I appreciate all of you. Thank you for engaging. Thank you for sharing your information with each other. Thank you for tuning in this evening. If you had any questions that you did not get answered or that you did not want to ask here, please reach out to me on LinkedIn. Please send me an email. Again, I really want to connect with you all. As I mentioned at the very end, you will receive an email that's going to have links that we have shared. So if you did not get an opportunity to capture them all, that's perfectly fine. You will see them in the email. Thank you. And I hope that you all enjoyed the rest of your day. Thank you so much, Gladys. I know it is so early for you. Thank you so much for joining.